We were discussing about the ethics in AI. Some of the we looked at the ethics issues in AI, then the fairness, accountability. Then we talked about the bias in AI systems. So we saw that cognitive bias can have a very crucial role in the AI system, designing the AI system, because the human bias can anyways creep into the AI systems. So the AI system learns and train itself according to the human's instructions. So and human instructions, humans do have bias in them. So therefore that bias gets into the AI based systems also. Now, for example, I discussed about the attention mechanism too. If you remember, I talked how we human also are biased towards certain images, certain parts only because the visual cortex focuses on one thing at a time, and thereby how we are able to focus on individual parts and then are able to make up the complete, let's say, an image or a word or a sentence, and then we can come up with the conclusion. So in the similar way, the AI systems work, the attention mechanism. So we'll look at this example, the attention example. This will look in today's class. So coming to the common type of bias in AI system, uh, first is the sample bias. So sample, now, if, as you know, in the AI part, they need huge amount of data to train themselves. Now ideally, let's say if I talk about the task of analyzing the COVID 19 tweets. Now the COVID-19 tweets, let's say it's been 1.5 to 2 years. So if I go and download all the tweets from this 1.5 to 2 years on Twitter, in one day itself you have 50,000 to 1 lakhs to lakhs and lakhs of tweets being generated. So if I, focus on the time range of 2 years, or if I take 2 years as my time range, so I might have millions and millions of data with me, and it becomes difficult for me, for the machines also, to analyze, to pre-process first the data, because obviously all the data won't be important, some might be retweets also. So I have to see that at which particular data is good enough for the model, which is not good enough. So what researchers do, they usually, uh, let's say, they divide their research into certain subset. So let's say I focus on a 3 month period, maybe a 3 month period, where, let's say, which was the peak period during the first wave. Uh, I've considered a subset, let's say the first wave where the peak period was there. So let's say I've concentrated my research on those 3 months. So thereby the data will also be reduced, and automatically, because I want the data which should actually reflect the true sense of my problem. It's not that, just giving the machine a number of data which is useless, doesn't make any sense. Or maybe I can again drill down, or further classify, divide this 3 month data as per the location. Let's say I only concentrate on tweet which are fetched from my country. I do not consider the tweets for other countries. So further I am drilling the tweets. I am not, then further, maybe the retweets which are there, I am not considering those tweets. Okay, so that's how, there is a subset. We focus on the subset of the data. But again, what if the subset is not large enough? Now there's no any particular steps defined to, choose a subset or to select a subset. Maybe the process which I followed could give me, let's say, good enough results, or maybe or maybe not, maybe the subset was not good enough. So this is one of the sample bias, because the sample or the subset which you are using may be too representative of the data of the problem which you are dealing, or may not give you the true representation of that. So for instance, this security camera. Suppose you want to create a model that can operate the security cameras at daytime and nighttime, but you only train the model on the nighttime data, or let's say on the daytime data, then obviously there is some sample bias in your model, because your model is focusing, you want to develop a model focusing on daytime and nighttime, but it is only focused on a particular set of samples only, that is daytime. So this is the sample bias, means there is problem in the sample, in the somewhat the data which you are dealing. A very common type of bias is this. Now second is the exclusion bias. So sometimes what happens is, like I told you, in your data set do have n number of features listed in them. So what might happen is, we might thought that, let's say these particular features, they are important, and we do not consider some other features, and we simply remove them. For example, if I talk about the Titanic survival prediction, now every passenger in the data set has a passenger ID. Okay, so I might think this passenger ID is, how can this passenger ID be anyways related to my problem? I don't want this feature in my data set, just simply remove it. So, but if you see here that that Titanic passengers were assigned rooms according to their passenger ID. So the rooms that passengers were assigned was according to their passenger ID, and the smaller the ID number, the closer was that room to the lifeboat, which means those people were able to get the lifeboat faster than those uh, who were the deep in the center of the Titanic, or those who were having the large passenger ID number. So it might happen that the person with smaller passenger ID may have more rate of survival. Now this could be a possibility, maybe. So again, if I remove this particular feature, so again this particular possibility is completely gone. So sometimes we exclude certain things because we think that no, it might not be important, especially the IDs and everything. We think, how can an ID be actually important for our particular problem? This was just an assumption of example of that. So again, for this, you should apply the proper feature selection, feature extraction algorithms, which I talked about, some correlation, how you are able to correlate the features with the output. So proper feature extraction, feature engineering part needs to be followed here. Now observer bias. Now certain bias which we see, sometimes what happens is, we have certain things already defined in our mind. Let's say uh, if I do a research on a rural, on urban and rural people, then if I, let's say, take the subject as education, I might feel that, this education, maybe the urban people are more into this education part, or are more into good schools, high schools, and maybe the rural people are not that much. Certain things which is already there in my mind by observing, let's say, or due to my experience which I have developed. So certain things which are already there inside us, that creates some bias in the machines itself. So for example, this is the one of the example of observer bias, that this psychologist, he was working on the heritability of IQ, that is the IQ herited or not. So he thought that the children from low socio-economic status were also likely to have lower intelligence compared to the children with higher socio-economic status. And then what happened was, because of his research in England, it resulted in a two-tier education system in the era of 1960s. So which sent the middle and upper class children to the elite schools, and the working class children to the less desirable schools. So again, but however, later on, when again complete research was done on this topic, this research was concluded as false, that this was baseless, and it was concluded that IQ can never be inherited. that it is not that your parents maybe are very good or doing very well jobs, or then they might have very good IQ, and similarly this the parents the children will also have the likewise IQ. So this is some observer bias that normally creeps in into the systems. One more bias is the prejudice bias. Now, prejudice means, again, we have certain bias that is due to the result of the stereotypes or the cultural influences, much similar to the observer bias. This is sometimes also referred to as experiment bias also. So prejudice bias means there are certain stereotypes which are already there in the society. You are also well aware of those stereotypes. So let's say if I have a model that is that has been fed with the training data, where men are cooking, where men are coding, and women are cooking. So let's say in my data set I have this thing already defined, that men will be coding and women will be cooking. So obviously the algorithm will automatically learn that whenever someone gives or types a coder, the name of the man will automatically be output, because that's how they have been tuned that way. And if any chef example is written, or any chef keyword is there, then it will automatically output woman, or any woman name is fed into the system, it will automatically give output as chef or homemakers or so on and so forth. So unconsciously or maybe consciously, these stereotypes do occurs in the data itself, and that's how the machines are also able to learn all these things. Finally, we have measurement bias also, where now these are the common type of bias. It's not that only these bias are there. There are some of the common type of bias. Apart from them also, there are lots and lots of bias that definitely creeps into the machines, but they are some specific common type of bias which are usually observed. So let's say if I have if there is a problem in my equipment, in my measuring device itself, that could also give me wrong result and create the bias in the system. So let's say if I'm shooting the images, capturing the images with a camera that increases the brightness of the images, then again the brightness part is already been incorporated in the images. So I have images which are already brighter that way. The model will automatically deal with those images in a different way as compared to the non-brighter images. So again, everything, the bright part, let's say the noise that are there in the images, the blurriness in the images, everything is very important in the model. So these filtering techniques are usually there to remove the noise in the images, so that they are free from the bias, the unnecessary data, and model can actually see and learn what it desires or what it wish to learn. So these are the some kind of very basic bias in the system. And that's why, due to all these issues, the AI systems that are now being generated, or that are already there, should follow the FAT or FATE principle, which stands for fairness, accountability, transparency, and ethics. Now, whatever AI system that are already there in the market and that people are generated, so these are the four major components on which they are being tested, that it should, so there is a legal documentation corresponding to every application that is being developed, that how much fair is this algorithm. So we'll look how the companies have designed certain tools also to measure the fairness of the algorithms of the model that they develop. Accountable, who should be held accountable for which particular problem. Okay. And again, because for the development of the systems, we have n number of people involved. Now in case of any mishappening, or if the AI system does anything wrong, obviously we can't punish the machine that way. So who should be accountable? Now again, for this you have entire analysis, the case goes to the to the code, then entire analysis is being done, who was at fault at which particular point. So we look at some examples of this also. Then transparency, how transparent is our model. This is very important, because only if your model is transparent, you will be able to, tell people that, this whatever I have built, this is giving me these results due to these many reasons. So that's why it's very important to, make others understand what your program or your model is, software is doing. If you are not able to define that, no one will trust your model, no one will use it, and eventually it will be a scrap product. So transparency, explainability is a very important part, and the ethics also. So that's how we usually deal with these four components while designing the AI application. And as I was saying, for measuring the fairness, which means it should not be biased to any segment. So we have many tools for that. Like the IBM has developed the AI Fairness 360 tool, open source software that is used to detect the bias in the AI system. So in the similar way, different companies, they are coming up with different tools also, fairness tool also, to see how fair is the AI model. So like this is the entire tree of this 36 AI 360 decision tree. So it basically explains the data that goes into the algorithm, then the explanation of the whole model. So which includes its local explanation also, its global explanation also, and what all features that are there, and how relevant are those features, and how are these features, they are how these features, with the help of these features, we can come up with a local explanation, a global explanation for the working of our product. So this is the whole AI explainability 360-degree decision model by IBM. Now this is open source tool, so it is freely available. Now some companies, they use let's say these kind of toolbox, some they come up with their own open source toolbox. Google also uses some different toolbox to explain their product, and that's how they just want to show that, how good and how transparent our model, AI model is. Now this was a demo. So this demo is already there online. You can go and check that how, let's say, for a loan decision, the model is able to, tell that Alice was given the loan and Robert was denied the loan. So the loan officer who is a, let's say, a non-technical person, he should be able to tell the customer, let's say Alice and Robert, that why Alice was given the loan, why Robert was denied from the loan, just by looking at the results of the model. So that way the model should be explainable even to the non-technical users. So this is the main uh, you can say focus. So that's why the more, let's say, if two people have developed a same product, and if the model of the second person is able to explain itself more and more in a basic ways, that such that it is very easy for a non-technical person to understand, then obviously the entire focus will be on model to software, because explainability in AI has suddenly captured everyone's attention. Now entirely the focus is shifted towards the explainable AI, that whatever you are developing, whatever you are coming up with, it should not be a black box to you and as well as to the end customers. So obviously the developers, the people who build the product, they to definitely somewhat they know that how things are going, but they should be, and the model that they are building should be able to explain itself. If not, then obviously there is a problem. So that's why the entire focus has suddenly shifted to the explainable AI part, and more focus has now tuned into the visualization techniques, this open source softwares to understand your model and all these things. Now we'll be okay. So this toolkit, so several papers. These are the examples of several papers who have used this toolkit. Now this toolkit, apart from having the visualization libraries, this toolkit also have the algorithms and the matrices related to these papers. So if you look at these papers, now whatever algorithm that these papers have used, okay, for any problem set, let's say this is for confidence profiles, or this is for teaching AI to explain and its decisions. So whatever algorithm that are there in these papers, that are already there in this toolkit, and the matrix means the parameters on which these algorithms were evaluated. So these matrices are also included in the toolkit. So you can simply download this toolkit and look at all the algorithms, use all the matrices for your particular problem maybe. So that's how people are coming up with different toolkits. So if you see these papers, all these things are in very well-known conference papers like NIPS. NIPS is a very famous conference. All are from NIPS. Now this is from AAAI. If you remember, I told you about the AAAI conference on AI. So these are very famous conferences in the area of AI, the topmost conferences, and they have the latest work and latest research by Google, Microsoft, and by various universities, Stanford and MITs, in the area of AI and everything. So let's say even if they come up with a different architecture or a different product that way, they definitely write the paper or maybe patent that way, so that that product or that algorithms are you can say listed on their name. So that's how and can obviously benefit the entire society. So if you have something developed and you have something which has entire explanation of that particular product or software, that how it was built, what are the hyperparameters, what are the exact rules that were there for building that product. So it definitely helps the fellow researchers to follow the same path and come up maybe with something new, right? This will definitely give people different ideas. So that's why we have all these papers here. Okay, so this is the example which I was talking about. So this was the paper in ACM Transactions. It is a very one of the topmost journal paper. So in this paper, sentiment analysis was used uh, to come up with to see what was the impact of COVID-19 on the world. Now, this is the architecture that was built to achieve this particular problem statement. Now, here the data set that was used was the Twitter, as I have just explained. The Twitter was used. Now, from the Twitter, they have focused on the top 5 companies that were worst affected. So let's say they started the research at maybe August 2020. Okay, let's say they started on August 2020. So as per this date, according to the World Health Organization statistics, who were the top 5 countries that were worst affected by the pandemic, or that had the maximum number of cases for this COVID-19. So those 5 countries were selected for this problem statement to analyze the sentiments. And then let's say the time frame was set, let's say from January to maybe June or July. The time frame was set that we'll be focusing on tweets from this particular period itself for all these 5 countries. Now, what the authors have majorly used, now first, since they are using the Twitter, they have only concentrated on the text part. Okay, only text was being considered. So the text was fed as an input to the system, and then it was converted into the embeddings. So if you remember, I told you whatever data we give into our AI systems, into our machines, that should be in the vector form. Okay, or certain numbers should be there, because machines, they only understand the numbers. They are not able to, understand the text that is there, that we can easily understand. So machines work with numbers or vectors. So the embeddings are the way by which you can convert your input into the vector form. So in the vector form means they will definitely have a direction and a magnitude defined with them, and that's how for every word you can have a vector representation. So there are different techniques again. You can use glove. Glove is an embedding technique. If someone might have used word to vec is another an embedding technique. So all these embeddings techniques, they were already, people have already come up with the embeddings of different words which are there in the dictionary. So they have already said, let's say the word, let's say king and queen. I have word as king and queen. Now the embeddings of king and queen will be quite similar to each other, because these words, they are quite similar to each other. Let's say the embedding, let's say then I have a word such as cat. Now cat is anyways not related to king and queen. So the embedding of this particular word will be somewhat different, or somewhat the number, let's say if the number is zero point 0.3 here, zero point 0.2 here, the number will might be, let's say, zero point 0.9 for cat. So this is how all the words are being represented in a 2D space using the vectors form. And the vectors, or the words which are close to each other, means they are somewhat similar or somewhat related to each other. And the words which are far away from each other, which then that means they are not so much related with these particular words. So this is how embeddings are being created. So entire text is being converted into the embedding layer here. So, and these embeddings get feeded into your deep network. So they have used the CNN architectures, convolution neural network, and the attention mechanisms, which I was talking about, that how the human attention works. So the CNN architecture, I'm not going into the too much technical part here. And any which ways for the CNN and everything, when we move to module 3, which has computer vision in it, there we'll be looking at CNN. So that's, I mean, in that module, things will be more clear to you. So that's why I'm not going into too much technical details here. So just this input is feeding into this CNN layer, and we get certain features map here. Now, as you can see, I am using a deep network. So this CNN and everything belongs to the CNN convolution neural network belongs to the technique of deep neural network. And if you remember, in deep neural network, these networks are automatically able to give us the features. We don't have to care that which features we should extract, which features are not important. They automatically give you a feature set of features. So these features which we got here are again fed into the attention mechanism here. Now this is very important. Now since we are focusing on the tweets, just one second. Okay, so since I am focusing on the tweets here, and the tweets might be, so yes, I have the example. So let's say these are the tweets in different languages. Okay, this is Hindi, this is in English, this is in Arabic, this is in Japanese. Now the first process is to convert all the tweets into the English language, let's say by Google Translator. So there are very n number of translator available. I am just talking about the Google Translator. So every tweet is being converted into the English language, as you can see here. Now you, as again, now in a sentence, if you look at a particular paragraph, now every paragraph is made up of certain sentences, and every sentence is made up of some words again. Now the idea of attention, or how we human also read, we Obviously we start with let's say a word here, my goodness to you. So these are the words here. I will start by reading word by word, and then let's say when I reach here, or when I reach at this comma, or maybe this comma, then automatically as I am reading, some words are getting into my mind, are there into my mind, and some words are not so important to me, and eventually I am remembering all these words here, so that at the end of the sentence I am able to make the meaning of this entire paragraph that is here. And so that's how we human deal. So whenever we read a sentence, so there are certain words which are important, we keep our focus on those words, and as soon as we are progressing, we some of the words is and the, maybe we are not, those words are not important. Let's say if there is a name of any entity here, so we for let's say point 1 second, we just pause for this word and remember that, oh, this is the man that is being talked about in this paragraph. Okay, so that's how we keep on feeding the information in our brain, and so that at the end of the paragraph or everything, we are able to make the sense of the entire data. So on this similar terms, the scientists have come up with the attention mechanism for the deep network also, for the deep networks too, which works on the same phenomena of human attention. So this is entirely motivated by the human attention part. So the architecture which you see here, first it uses the word level encoding and attention, then it uses the sentence level encoding and attention, which means this is the entire architecture, attention architecture here. So this architecture first focuses on the words that are important, and then this architecture that is here, it focuses on the sentences which are important, and then at the end we can get an entire document vector, means the information of the entire document, that what that document was conveying to me. So if you see, after this particular, after word attention, I got the sentence vector, because after reading each word I got the a sentence, and after this sentence vector, reading the entire sentence, I got the document vector here, which so that I can make I can understand the entire document. So each and every tweet that is there, that is it is fed into this mechanism, so that eventually you can get the sentiments, let's say a positive sentiment, a neutral sentiment, or a negative sentiment here. Now, as I was telling you, the attention, so this is the attention visualization. This is how intention is being visualized for the words. Now you see, so this red denotes the negative, no, red denotes the positive sentiment, and this denotes the negative sentiment. So if you see here, the brighter the color, let's say the brighter the red color is, the more important or the more attention has been given to that word by your machine. So word like brilliant, social, good, rules, happy, they have been given more attention to your model. And that's how the model is able to learn that this is a positive sentiment or a positive sentence. Words like with, to, as, now these are not being highlighted so much, so they were not the main focus of the model. Similarly, if you look at the negative part, negative sentence, so let's say the words such as death, maybe scary, or everything, vaccine. So these words, evil, they were there, that were being focused into the model, and words again like the, to, it, they were not being focused. So you see how, so we can actually see that which particular words the model is highlighting. So that's how I can understand that how my model is able to learn from these words, because as a human, I can understand and make sense of this entire sentence, and this is very easy for me to come and say whether it's a positive, negative, or what is the meaning of the sentence. But what about my model? And the AI system with the NLP part, the natural language processing, it is very difficult to build or come up or to fine tune the model in the NLP domain. And NLP is a very recent area of research. The areas such as computer vision, which includes the images and the videos. This is a very old area, and major research always focuses on this computer vision part, and it is still going. Even the deep networks, they were first being used in the computer vision area. This NLP has come into the picture quite a few years back only, and after gaining sufficient confidence on computer vision with the deep learning algorithms, scientists have used it in the NLP part itself. So this NLP is something new, and designing or coming up with the AI systems with NLP domain is a very challenging part. So that's how people are able to coming up with different visualization techniques with the text part also. So this is one of them, one of that technique where you are visualizing the word level attention weights here. Now this is again the sentiment visualization of people. Now, as I told you that the research has been focused on these 5 countries which were having maximum case at that particular time when the research was being considered. Now you see, they have shown that during the span of February to, let's say, June, or I think the period was from January to June. So let's say here in January, let's say in US, there were not so many crucial tweets that were being generated. So that's why those tweets might have been discarded. So they have shown that what is the trend of sentiments throughout this particular range. So this was the positive. How many positive sentiments were there? How many negative, and how many were the neutral sentiments? In each and every country, they have shown the fluctuation of sentiments with time, with the period of this 5 to 6 months. So again, next visualization technique is the LDA based visualization technique. So before proceeding into this, I first want to pause for a bit and want to assign the topics to you, so that because after once I get into this explanation, the time might get over. So just first let me assign the topics to you for the next presentation, which is scheduled on next Wednesday, next week. So that is, let me just see the calendar, that is on 29th of September. So 29th of September, again, 4 students will be given topic, and those 4 have to give the presentation on the topics. So now first I'm just explaining the topic one by one. Then you can, if you want to volunteer, you can come up and volunteer for those topic. Otherwise, I myself will have to select. So first topic is the Facebook ethical failures. So there have been n numbers of, unfortunately, n numbers of failures, ethical failures, especially the privacy issues that I think everyone might be familiar of. So there had been many issues with the privacy concern of Facebook. So you have to come up that what were the privacy issues or the ethical failures which Facebook has seen, and how Facebook responded to them, and what consequences it faced. Maybe monetary compensation, because in the latest privacy issue, they were being fined for a certain amount. So you can say that how they responded to these issues over the time, because the issues kept on coming in over the period, because obviously it's such a huge platform. So definitely nothing can be perfect. So the issues were coming. So what ethical failures the Facebook has faced, how it has responded and what consequences it faced. So first is this topic. Second is the safety critical AI. So you have to tell what are the safety critical systems in AI and how AI can be used for them. You can come up with different applications now, like how AI is used for the safety critical AI systems, and what challenges again, ethical and privacy issues that are faced by them, the safety critical AI systems. Third topic is the you have to explain or any three tools for ethical AI. So for example, I talked about the IBM 360 tool. Similarly, every company has many companies have come up with their fairness tool, their tool, so that they can tell that how AI can be made more ethical. So like this fairness tool was one of the part of it, because in ethical AI the fairness is also one of the component there which we look for. So they have come up with the tool for the fairness part. Similarly, what other companies are using, and for ethical AI you have to explain any three tools. Now explanation doesn't mean any coding part, a normal explanation which is which everyone can understand and everyone can relate how this tool is being utilized for the specific AI application, and what could be maybe the advantage or disadvantage of that tool. Because whenever there is any library or tools, a number of tools are there, obviously some might have some features, some might not have other features. So you can explain what are the advantages and disadvantages of them. Then how they are helping in making the AI ethical, like whether it is addressing the transparency issue, fairness issue, or removing the bias in the system, or it is explaining the model, what in which particular part it is focusing. Fourth and last topic is ethical versus an unethical AI research at Google. So if you remember the video yesterday, the tagline of Google is "Don't be evil," right? And but if you research Google in the first half of 2018, Google has removed this tagline from its code of conduct, that will not be focusing on to this code line. So you have to tell whether the research or what research, the research which Google is doing, how much is the ethical one, how much is the unethical one, and how, like the project Maven was the somewhat the unethical project which came to the Google employees. Okay, how they responded, we show that. So any other research that was offered to Google that Google might be doing, or is Google able to sufficiently justify its tagline of "Don't be evil"? So this is the fourth topic for you. So again, okay, so these are the four topics. So for the first topic, which is Facebook ethical failures, so any volunteer for that? Again, 10 minutes presentation, 8 to 10 minutes presentation will be needed, not more than that. So yes, for the first one, Facebook ethical, anyone? Otherwise, I have to. Okay, so Aryan Kapoor.
Hello.
Hello, yes, Aryan, are you there?
I am. Hello.
Yes, Aryan. So Aryan, for this first topic, Facebook ethical failures, I will be assigning this topic to you.
I'm so sorry. I just joined in the class. I had my internship meeting going on. I just got free
So
from that. I have
Aryan,
no idea what's
Aryan,
going on.
so Aryan, first tell me, you have to see, you have to give the presentation on the coming on next Wednesday, next week. That is 29th of
Okay.
September. So first you
Okay.
confirm me what are your internship times and whether you will be available on Wednesday or not.
That is this Wednesday. Actually, you mean 29th, next Wednesday.
29th, next Wednesday, yes.
My internship is like the entire day. It starts at 8 in the morning till 6 in the evening. But I will be able to make time for
Are you sure?
presentation. Yeah,
Okay,
yeah, yeah, for sure.
because on Wednesday we have a class at I think 9:40. So maybe
In the
10
morning.
minutes presentation. Yes, in the morning. So the presentation will be of 10 minutes. If you can spare 10 minutes of yours, that will be great.
Perfect.
Okay.
Perfect.
So, okay, Aryan, for you, the topic is Facebook ethical failures, where you have to tell that, as I just explained, that Facebook have been facing some privacy issues also, that in news you might have heard that what all privacy issues Facebook have been facing. So apart from these issues, there have been many other issues that Facebook have been facing, where it is not able to justify the ethical part of the uh, system of the Facebook entirely. So what all
Correct.
issues, maybe the privacy issues that Facebook is facing over the years, not only one or two issues, some of three, four to five issues that Facebook is facing, and how Facebook responded to them when the issues came up, how they responded to them, and what consequences it faced. Maybe some monetary compensation they had to give. Okay.
Correct.
Yeah. So for this, your topic is the Facebook ethical failures. Okay.
Correct. Just one more doubt. Like for people who are doing internships, are there any alternate modes of grading as well, apart from the presentation or something else?
Yes, 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 they are. I have uploaded a video on LMS. First, just check that. I have explained everything in that video.
I will check that. Thank you so
Okay,
much.
okay, okay. So second, safety critical AI. Yes. So Kinchuk, are you there? Kinchuk Gupta.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, great, Kinchuk. And I think you haven't given any presentation as of now. Yes. So Kinchuk, for you again, the topic is safety critical AI. Do I have to explain what is it? What you have to make?
Yes, ma'am. I
So
wasn't there.
okay, great. So Kinchuk, the in the safety critical AI, you have to explain what are the safety critical systems by giving the examples, and how artificial intelligence can be used for them, for the safety critical systems, and what are the ethical or privacy challenges that are faced by the safety critical systems. Okay.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay, great. So also, if any case, when I mean, while designing the presentation or anything, any problem comes up, so you can definitely reach out to me and tell me whatever doubts you are facing. Third, three tools for ethical AI. Yes, yes, three tools for ethical AI. So Mayank, Mayank Yadav.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, Mayank. So for you, I have the topic of three tools for ethical AI.
Okay.
Okay. Fourth, last topic. Any volunteer? Any which ways you have to give a presentation, especially for those who are not interning. So it's better you give early. And so okay. So for this part, Shrishti Verma. Anyone wants to
Yes,
volunteer?
ma'am.
Okay. Okay, Shrishti, great. So, Shrishti, for you, the fourth topic is ethical versus unethical AI research at Google.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay. So, Google has the tagline of "Don't be evil." So, you have to justify that whether Google is following that tagline of or not for the AI research. Okay, so it will be interesting. Go and search what all Google is doing in AI research, how much ethical it is, how much unethical it is. Like I explained in yesterday's lecture about the project Maven, which was given to Google, and how their employees responded to it. So you can definitely have a look at yesterday's lecture or at Project Maven and get some idea. But don't explain that project, because that project I've already explained in the class. Look for some other project that Google is into.
Okay, ma'am. All right.
Okay. Okay. Okay, great. So, all four of you, you have to give the presentation on 29th of September. That is Wednesday in your class itself. And presentation maximum time is 10 to 12 minutes. Don't stretch your presentation beyond 12 minutes. That is the maximum limit, please. So 10 minutes is fine, 10 to 12 minutes it's fine, because you have four people here. So 10 minutes presentation is fine. Okay, any
Excuse
other
me,
doubt?
ma'am.
Yes, Siddharth.
Ma'am, for the assignment test tomorrow, can you tell us how it would be